Illusions are worth a lot. I'm actually just very tired right now. Greetings from the west coast of Canada. So it's lovely to be with you all. Yeah, so as mentioned, this talk explores the law of karma through the experience of actively blocking a tar sands pipeline, a new pipeline with an interfaith prayer circle. I wanted to raise my hands to my friend Sarah Ross, who is here. She was there on that action. So I thought I'd start by reflecting on why I actually signed up to give a talk. I didn't know at the time it would be 8:30 in the morning. But even so, like, why put in the effort of putting a talk together, right? And I realized one reason that I signed up was for the opportunity to reflect more deeply on the law of karma, on the adventures of being a 21st century bodhisattva or eco-sattva. So the stories that I have to share are exciting, they're inspiring, yet I'm motivated to actually explore how these faith-based adventures resonate with the Buddha's teaching, the law, the Dharma, and the law of the the law of karma specifically. So of course, the law of karma is vast. And I'm also reminded and humbled that its oversimplification can be unhelpful. It can do more harm than good. So I did struggle a bit putting this talk together because it's, on the one hand, wanting to do justice to the Dharma, this inconceivable fundamental truth about the nature of reality, and of course the law of karma. And at the same time, sharing stories from quite a mundane action that's the only thing, in a sense, it has in common that it is connected by faith. So we'll see how it goes. The outline of the talk will begin with an overview of the law of karma and the related teachings, or the ones that relate to the work of this anti-pipeline faith-based work. After kind of setting the stage or setting the ground, we'll move to the background and context, which of course is where I am currently located, and the experiences of the Arrestable Core of the Prayer Circle Direct Action Group. And then I'll conclude with some perspective on the fruits of the direct action, perhaps the fruits of karma, as related to spiritually rooted direct action, nonviolent direct action. So just to be clear, before I launch in and possibly lose the thread or run out of time, the main dharmic theme that I wish to weave together is karma, intentions, and ethics. One point I'm going to plant right now, I'd like us to take away, relates to our understanding and expression of ethics in this current world, which is a fossil fuel addicted, complex, bewildering time and place in human history. That could be a talk in itself. And that's sort of what I invite us all to just kind of stay connected with through the talk. There's some questions that might come with that. For example, what's actually holding me back from stepping up, speaking out, doing what needs to be done, doing the work of a bodhisattva. And then this question, which sort of gives a hint of what's to come in the talk, is, if I knew that the charges would be dropped, would that change my behavior in this regard? And then just a question to bring in the mythical aspect is, do I actually believe in the bodhisattva ideal? So let's move into the talk then. The title is The Fruits of Direct Action, Inspiration, Imprisonment, and Some Surprises. So let's start with the law of karma and related teachings, just to clarify the basis that we're starting from. And of course, the reason I was so interested in this is that karma is become quite popularized. You hear it referred to in pop songs, and it's kind of like the equivalent of seeing Buddha rupas in every garden center, and every fashionable restaurant without necessarily direct reference to the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha, or the historical Buddha for that matter. So karma is much more vast than popular culture would have us believe. So I'd like to begin with one of the best known formulations of the law of karma. It's the first 8 verses of the Dhammapada, which is one of the earliest Buddhist texts, could be as close to what the Buddha actually taught as we have. And I've got a translation by Gil Fronsdal from 2005. So yeah, the Dhammapada starts with, all experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind. Speak or act with a corrupted mind, and suffering follows as the wagon wheel follows the hoof of the ox. All experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind. Speak or act with a peaceful mind, and happiness follows like a never departing shadow. He abused me, he attacked me, defeated me, robbed me. For those carrying on like this, hatred does not cease. She abused me, attacked me, defeated me, robbed me. For those not carrying on like this, hatred ends. Hatred never ends through hatred. By non-hate alone does it end. This is an ancient truth. Many do not realize that we here must die. For those who realize this, quarrels end. So probably these verses may be enough to reflect on in terms of the law of karma. It's all in there and they are well worth reflecting on. So I want to draw out how this essential formulation emerged in the world. It had not been in the world prior to the Buddha's enlightenment experience. The victory of his noble quest was a direct experience of conditioned co-arising or dependent origination. In that transformative experience under the Buddha, under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha saw all his previous lives and rebirths, and the ways by which they were all tied to conditions. He also saw the lives and rebirths of all living beings, all connected in cyclic existence by conditions and conditioned co-production. So whether or not we believe in rebirth doesn't actually matter here. Put simply, all things arise in dependence on conditions, and they cease when these conditions no longer hold. This being that becomes on the arising of this that arises, this not being that does not become on the ceasing of this that ceases. Just wanted to sing a little bit there. And of course, while it sounds basic and quite easy, this teaching is far-reaching and so hard to grasp. So the reason that we start with conditioned co-production, of course, is it emerged from that enlightenment experience, and the law of karma emerged similarly from this realization. Skillful actions lead to beneficial outcomes or desirable outcomes. By contrast, unskillful actions lead to undesirable outcomes. So karma in Sanskrit is a term that literally means action or doing. Karma leads to future consequences, or karma vipaka, or the fruit of action. Any given action can cause all sorts of results, but the karmic results are only those results which are a consequence of both the moral quality of the action and of the intention behind the action. I found this really useful to reflect on. And I'd like to include a verse from the Samyutta Nikaya, which is the kindred sayings of the Pali Canon. According to the seed that's sown, so is the fruit you reap therefrom. Doer of good will gather good. Doer of evil, evil reaps. Down is the seed, and thou shalt taste the fruit thereof. So we'll get to intention and ethics shortly, but first I just want to clarify that karma does not work in both ways. So for example, we cannot infer that someone getting into a tragic car accident had it coming due to some previous unskillful action in this life or otherwise. So we must be careful to avoid the Hindu angle of karma, which is punitive and fatalistic. Conditionality is very different from causality. And the law of karma, as per the Buddha, is unequivocal about this. So let's continue to unpack the meaning of karma vipaka, or fruit of action. Karmic results are only those results which are a consequence of the intention behind the action and the moral quality of the action. So I just want to delve a little bit into these two features. So intention, or chaitana. In the Buddhist tradition, karma refers to action driven by intention, or chaitana, a deed done deliberately through body, speech, and mind, which leads to future consequences. So to draw from the scriptures, the centrality of intention to karma is expressed in the Nibbedika Sutta. And here's just a brief quote. Intention, I tell you, is karma. Intending, one does karma by way of body, speech, and intellect. So the Buddha defined karma as intention. Whether the intention manifests in physical, mental, or vocal form, it is the intention alone which has a moral character, good, bad, or neutral. Recalling that the Buddha was perhaps the first great psychologist, this clarification shifts the focus away from physical action involving people and objects in the real world to psychological process. According to Gombrich, this was quite an innovation at the time, as it overturned the Brahmanical caste-bound ethics. It is a rejection of caste-bound differences, giving the same possibility for liberation to all people, not just Brahmins. So shifting to ethics, or sila. Ethics is a vital practice with direct implications on our karma. The wheel of life demonstrates the rounds of conditionality and the precious gap in which we have the opportunity to break free from habitual responses to try something different. So presented in reverse, the law of karma applies specifically to the ethical sphere of existence. Karma is not concerned with the general relation between actions and their consequences, but rather with the moral quality of actions and their consequences. How do our actions contribute to the well-being of others in a positive or negative sense, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? A metaphor for ethics that I like in this context is that our actions of body, speech, and mind are like dropping seeds that will someday bear fruit. So we may only know at the time of death or rebirth the full consequences of our actions. And even then, the karma we created will be part of the complex unfolding of all the other forms of karma we've accumulated throughout our lives. Habitual karma, weighty karma, and residual karma. I'll get to these later. So ethics and skillful effort play a central role to Buddhist practice, of course, on par with meditation and wisdom. I like to regard the precepts as training wheels that the Buddha offered to his disciples. So with faith that practicing ethics is aligning my being with the enlightened mind, I can commit to practicing non-harm, generosity, stillness, and clarity of mind. I can acknowledge that I will probably fail every day, yet strive on. And so the last sort of teaching I wanted to draw out before reflecting on the fruits of direct action is the Bodhisattva ideal. So the teachings on karma, intention, and ethics are wonderfully practical, if even a stretch at times. But the final Dharma teaching I wish to draw out is the mythical Bodhisattva ideal. In addition to being deeply inspired by it, the Bodhisattva relates squarely to the theme of this talk, of spiritually rooted, nonviolent direct action, and of holding to impossible aspirations, if only by not turning away from the impossible. So bodhisattvas are radiant beings who exist in innumerable forms, functioning in helpful ways in the middle of the busyness of the world. The bodhisattva vow is an expression of impossible aspiration and altruism. Poetry may sum it up best, so I'd like to offer two versions from two different traditions. So the Zen form of the bodhisattva vow: sentient beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Suffering is fathomless, I vow to end it. The teachings are infinite, I vow to master them. Enlightenment is inconceivable, I vow to realize it. And there's also an ecosattva vow form of the bodhisattva vow, which I'd also like to evoke at this moment. Gaia is in peril, I vow to protect her. Climate change is relentless, I vow to end it. Gaia's teachings are infinite, I vow to hear them. Awakened love is inconceivable, I vow to embody it. So personally, the Bodhisattva ideal is the reason I became a Buddhist in 2009. I love that the Bodhisattva vow is at the pinnacle of the Triratna Buddhist order. I love that all order members take that vow as part of their ordination. I look forward to doing so myself. So let's shift now to the mundane part of this talk. Obviously, much more could be said about karma and the Bodhisattva ideal, but I want to tell you about the experiences of the Prayer Circle Direct Action Group. So, thank you, Julia. Given that we're on Zoom together, I thought I would include some images on this talk. Anyone that was at Sagar Vajra's talk yesterday will know that the video was lovely. And since a picture is worth 1,000 words, I'm going to start my screen share now. Can you see that okay? Okay, great. So there's that picture Akasha Raja referred to, which is a crop from a greater image. Okay, so context. Let's see, since 2018, I've been living on the west coast of so-called Canada. If anyone's been here, put your thumb up or something. It's quite far from where many of you are in Europe and the UK. So my home Sangha is the Vancouver Buddhist Center. Now, a couple months before I moved back to Canada, the Trudeau government bought the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline from Texas oil giant Kinder Morgan for $4.5 billion. I was irate. The decision was made without any public consultation or input. I had personally never wanted to own a tar sands pipeline. If anything, I want the tar sands to close down, not expand. I found my anti-pipeline community soon after landing. Protect the planet, stop TMX. Yeah, so as is our tradition, I need to honor and acknowledge that we are on unceded Coast Salish territory. These are beautiful ancestral lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. It's also known as beautiful British Columbia, and visitors from all over the world come here to experience the rugged beauty, clean waters, old growth forests, big animals, and vividly connected ecosystems. I'm going to give some images just to give you a flavor of this place. So everything here is at risk, thanks to current and past politics. The state of democracy in Canada is not good, and just say yes, policies continue to favor and subsidize industry behind closed doors. The legacy of the neoconservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper, 2006 to 2015, has left scars on par with Thatcher in the UK and Reagan in the US in the 80s. This beautiful part of the world is in the process of reckless and far-reaching industrialization. So what's the deal with this tar sands pipeline, you might ask? So the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline is a new pipeline intended to transport thick crude from the tar sands of northern Alberta to the coast of British Columbia, over 1,000 kilometers. By twinning the aging Trans Mountain Pipeline, TMX should triple capacity to an estimated 890,000 barrels a day and increase tanker traffic from 60 a year to over 400 a year. Concerns are numerous, and I'll list them as bullet points. So tanker traffic is a serious issue. It's projected to increase from about 3 vessels a month to 1 a day. This has serious implications for marine life, especially whales and dolphins who rely on sonar to hunt and communicate and who are already struggling with existing noise. Very high pressure. So this pipeline, let's see, it's at, very high pressure is required to move the toxic peanut butter-like product, 900 PSI. This pipeline, as you can kind of see around Vancouver, a lot of construction areas there, one of the most densely populated parts of this large country. This high pressure pipeline passes within 1 kilometer of 9 schools in Metro Vancouver. The storage tank facility on Burnaby Mountain is located beside the only road leading to and from Simon Fraser University. Catastrophic fire risk has yet to be properly resolved. And in this seismically prone area, this is a ticking time bomb of a catastrophic toxic fire. I don't know if I mentioned that this project qualifies as a quote unquote carbon bomb. And you wouldn't believe it, but it's questionable markets. There is an unconvincing business case for this project. On top of that, false accounting, it's a stranded asset by a captured regulatory system. Taxpayers will be burdened. Yeah, at this point, a 17 billion for debt forgiveness is projected. So 17 billion of taxpayer dollars will not be paid back. Another image that actually my friend Sarah took, or maybe that's Sarah in the picture on her work. I just want to acknowledge as well, this project completely disregards the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the notion or the even ideal of free, prior, and informed consent on these unceded territories. This relates to injunctions that have been applied to the whole length of this project in every work site. Injunctions are considered a form of weaponizing industrial projects because it allows people to be arrested and criminalized. Since 2018, there have been over 250 arrests around this project. And the last point I just have to make is that few Canadians actually know about it, much less the rest of the world. It could be coincidence, but ever since the federal government's media bailout of over $700 million since 2018, media only comes out to cover arrests. We get very little coverage on what's happening with this project. So I don't wish to dwell any further, certainly not in statistics. I'm guessing your eyes are already glazed over. I just want to give one moment of truth to questions before they arise, especially for those who are unfamiliar with these lands. You might wonder, surely Christine is exaggerating. Surely it can't be that bad. Perhaps these anti-pipeline folks are anti-everything, well-meaning though they are. Surely there are some benefits from this project that she's obscuring or ignoring. I understood Canada's a lovely place, a world leader with abundant and pristine nature, polite Canadians, a mosaic of cultures coexisting in harmony. The perception you may have of Canada may be partly true. I regret that this talk will burst some of that bubble, however. The whole world is currently gripped by neoliberal capitalism, which means that government and industry exists as swinging door shapeshifters. So what would Buddha do? Even if we weren't in a climate emergency, I'm certain the Buddha would step up to say something about this carbon bomb. I'm confident the Buddha would not turn a blind eye to the massive extraction projects that threaten the planet. Sorry, that's a quote from an independent media source, The Ricochet. I'm sure the Buddha would not turn a blind eye to the scale of greed and delusion behind this, or the scale of violence replicating centuries of genocide. Being an enlightened being, he would not be attached to outcomes, but he would not sit back and accept such destruction and desecration of Mother Earth. As for the Bodhisattva, responding to the suffering of communities, both human and ecological, would be an expression of boundless compassion, approached with the energy and spirit of play. So this brings us to the Prayer Circle Direct Action Group, a group that began as the Earth Witness Worship Meeting, a multi-faith prayer circle established in July 2018 by my friend Ruth, who is Quaker. Earth Witness meets on the second Sunday of every month under the big cedar next to the Indigenous Watch House on Burnaby Mountain. You can just see the watch house in the background there. The watch house was set up by Tsleil-Waututh Nation in March 2018 to keep an eye on the tank storage facility, which is just behind the watch house in this image. I'm proud to say that we take our direction from our host nations and inform them of our actions and intentions. The opportunities to collaborate with First Nations has been a boon to my spiritual practice, as Indigenous land defenders and water protectors do everything in ceremony. Ceremony is vital decolonization practice. Participating in ceremony has opened my heart to devotional practice in a profound way. I could speak for hours about how ceremony and prayer have changed my life and practice, but that's a different talk. I raise my hands to my Indigenous teachers and friends with gratitude for their patience, generosity, and resilience. So after meeting monthly for 2.5 years, Earth Witness transitioned into the Prayer Circle Direct Action Group in order to support the aerial camp that went up to protect local trees from the pipeline. Many people were upset that over 1,300 trees could be cut contrary to municipal bylaws due to federal paramountcy. Quote, TMX is not beholden to the city bylaw stating the need of a permit. So members of the community got involved in supporting a tree sit, which continuously occupied a 1-kilometer stretch of forest in the Brunette River corridor for over a year. The tree sit project required a dedicated team of climbers and supporters. And of course, some of you may know this, our first tree sit, is what brought me into contact with the Prayer Circle, as I was the 3rd tree sitter. So this is our longest holding tree sit at Lost Creek, which was established in early 2021, actually late December 2020. This was established in the next tributary upstream after the first one was breached and lost. It was difficult to access compared to the first one, and the tree sitter, this is our friend Timothy, felt quite isolated. So as a demonstration of solidarity and mutual aid, the Prayer Circle decided to go there for its meetings. This meant crossing the injunction, which implied unpleasant interactions with TMX security as well as risk of arrest. It meant pushing beyond our comfort zones, to be sure. Interacting with arrogant stalker-like security people who filmed our every move certainly pushed my practice of the Metta Bhavana and revealed my limitations. I think I forgot. Yeah, this is one of our early sits right beside Lost Creek at the foot of the tree sit. In March 2021, strengthened by collective practice and nourished by spiritual friendship, the Prayer Circle Direct Action Group started meeting fortnightly to block work. Regardless of the weather, we would sit, sing, meditate, and pray in front of the entry-exit gates of TMX construction sites, in front of heavy machinery, and around the tree sit. In the hot summer months, we did a couple bank occupations to challenge the main financier of TMX and other fossil fuel projects, the Royal Bank of Canada. Our friend Hummingbird helped shut down work for all of summer 2021, but cutting and work was still happening everywhere, including at the edges of the forest, as you can see here. Okay, since crossing the injunction zone came with risk of arrest, and since arrest came with the bonus of media coverage, we established an arrestable corps. Engaging in actions that involved this risk required a whole new dimension to organizing. So the small arrestable corps included Ruth, who's Quaker, Jeanette, who's Presbyterian, Catherine, who is Unitarian, and myself, Buddhist. We would discern together where we felt called, depending on what was happening at the front line, and then inform the rest of the prayer circle to ensure essential roles were filled. For example, police liaison, media contact. The prayer circle made a commitment early on to use the buddy system to ensure that no one would be arrested alone. This was an extremely rich period of spiritual practice, spiritual friendship, and community. Further to developing deep trust and friendship with my sisters, I was in frequent communication with my kula and with all my friends, which granted perspective and confidence. So from March until September 2021, the prayer circle was one of the most active groups stopping TMX through nonviolent direct action. Although we were prepared for arrest every time, it only finally happened in September. Just realized I didn't show these images. This was a doodle that I did of an image of what we might do, and it actually manifested. This is at the Brunette River corridor. There's that picture. So we were prepared for arrest every time, but it only finally happened in September. There are two reasons for this. First, after TMX security threatened to call police, it usually took a number of hours until the police arrived. By then, we'd have stopped work for the day and therefore chose to leave and plan another action. Another reason is in the months before the federal election, we noticed police were very slow to arrive at site. They'd likely been instructed to avoid bad publicity by the Prime Minister's office. So in September 2021, 3 days after the federal election, the tactical RCMP came in to shut down the tree sit and extract the climbers. Tree clearing had reached the bottleneck of our tree sit, and it was endgame. So this image kind of gives you a sense of this pipeline-shaped clear cut coming right through this beautiful forest. So regrettably, I had just begun teaching a new job and had to retract my involvement from the arrestable corps. While I did not long to be arrested, I regretted not being able to follow through on the intention that defined the previous 6 months. If I were ever to go to jail for justice, I wanted to be on prison retreat with my sisters. Very strange case of FOMO, fear of missing out. And in retrospect, it would have been much less stressful to go to jail compared to teaching in a new job while coordinating our media team. So the arrests happened within days of each other. In addition to Ruth, Catherine, and Jeanette, our friends Tim, Bill, and Zane were arrested in the trees and on the ground. They were grouped together for court, calling themselves the Brunette River Six. Ruth, Catherine, and Jeanette were able to do their jail time together. They decided to plead guilty and self-represent, so court was not an expensive process. For breaking the injunction, they were charged with criminal contempt of court and given 14 days. If they hadn't been released early for good behavior, Catherine would have celebrated her 80th birthday behind bars at the Alouette Correction Center for Women. Over 250 people have been arrested since 2018 for opposing the TMX project. And this banner and the individual crocheted hearts were created as a result of respecting those people. So that is all of the images, as I'd like to now move into the inspiration and the reflections on imprisonment and surprises. So for me, the most inspiring aspect of these adventures we did was the opportunity to experiment with the Bodhisattva vow. Doing these crazy things together would not have been possible as individuals. And this is a beautiful reminder about the importance of spiritual friendship. In autumn of 2021, a bunch of us did the Ecosattva training together, which was a fantastic opportunity to deepen our practice and friendship and our understanding of the lived Dharma in this context. So again, under inspiration and returning to this notion of the spiritual fruits of direct action, I'd like to read a reflection from my friend Ruth. She writes, I've been led by my conscience to take action with regards to protecting the earth and speaking out against TMX and expansion of new fossil fuel projects. My obedience to this calling has been a leap of faith, and with that, a willingness to enter the unknown. What I have seen is that along every step of my journey, the fruits of my actions have brought me into deeper relationship with community. I'm also personally inspired by the notion of the white seed. This notion that our good intentions, actions, and merit can actually be dropped into the alaya, this storehouse consciousness, with this notion that we are influencing future and current consciousness on this planet of interconnection. As for karma, or as with karma, unknowable. And the last point of inspiration is that this work offered amazing opportunities to weaken our conditioned tendency of dualistic thinking, especially around us and them. Us and them is a timeless method to divide and conquer. And so we couldn't use the simple example of the human enemy. Rather, we chose to frame our enemies as the oppressive systems of colonialism, patriarchy, racism, and capitalism, which are, of course, are characterized by greed, dominance, and exploitation. So moving to imprisonment and some surprises. During their jail time, Jeanette, Ruth, and Catherine were in a cell together. They started singing together in three-part harmonies, much to the amazement of prison staff and inmates. The acoustics in their cell were marvelous. The evening before their release, they held a song circle with the other inmates, some of whom they had come to know quite well during their 9 days of confinement. They passed around handwritten lyrics to some of their songs so others could sing along. Ruth said it was a very moving experience. Since their release, they continue to meet and sing under the name of the Alouette Sisters. This name refers to the Alouette Women's Correctional Center. But of course, Alouette also translates in French to lark, which is a beautifully musical bird. To date, the Alouettes have done about 7 presentations to faith groups, telling their stories and singing their songs, as well as musical performance in churches and at rallies. And the last point, which falls under some surprises, is that their criminal charges were dropped. And actually, this relates to a trend that I've been noticing, that courts have been dropping charges for numerous land defenders engaged in nonviolent direct action in stopping pipelines or stopping the logging of old growth forest in BC. Now, of course, the courts are rigid embodiments of colonial law, and they are terribly, shockingly racist towards our Indigenous friends. Yet there is one aspect to injunction law in general and civil disobedience in particular that is sometimes absolved from criminal labeling. So that's quite interesting. So to conclude, we live in a complex, bewildering time and place. Fossil fuel addiction is a global problem, and those of us desperate for rehab are being criminalized for challenging the status quo. Government and industry is one and the same. Colonial extractivism remains at large. Genocide continues against Indigenous people. So in a way, I consider myself fortunate to live at the end of a pipeline, as it is relatively easy to get engaged and fend off eco-anxiety while building spiritual friendship. I know this is not possible for most people. Nevertheless, I invite us all to continue the never-ending reflection. What's holding me back from stepping up, speaking out, doing what needs to be done. If I knew the charges would get dropped, would that change my behavior? And do I actually believe in the Bodhisattva ideal? So I'd just like to close with some wisdom from Dogen, apparently uttered upon his enlightenment. Dogen said, I came to realize clearly that mind is no other than rivers and mountains and the great wide earth, the sun and the moon and the stars. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. There's so much in that to rejoice in, to celebrate, albeit against the deeply troubling backdrop of the continued plague of fossil fuel addiction. So a clear exposition of the Dharma and a constant reference to spiritual practice underpins everything you do. Your inspiration, your excitement about the Bodhisattva idea, your dedication to that shines. And yeah, your interrogation of your own practice, your honesty, are very, very inspiring. So yeah, and those three questions we can take away and reflect on. You know, again, they're another set of very punchy questions that really have deep implications. So thank you once again for being here to talk to us. I don't know, did you want to take questions or anything, or yeah, because we still have a few minutes if anyone wants to make a comment or ask a question or make an observation, I guess.
Lovely to see everyone that's here.
Christine, I'd like to just say how wonderful that talk was. So inspiring and so wonderful to see your face again. Sadhu to you as you carry on. Yeah, amazing.
So nice to see you, Chrissy. Thank you.
May I just add, Christine, always an inspiration, and thank you for, even though you've done the EcoSattva training before, for organizing another group of us who are going to do the training in January. And I hope that some other folks on this call will join us.
Yeah, I'm planning to.
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, we'll see how the time zones work out. Thank you so much for coming.
Christine, could you just say the Dogen again, please? The last quote.
Love to. Dogen upon his enlightenment. I came to realize clearly that mind is no other than rivers and mountains and the great wide earth, the sun and the moon and the stars. Well, it's almost 9:30 out here on the West Coast. I think I'm ready for my second cup of tea of the day. So wonderful to connect with you all. Thank you all for hearing my story, and yeah, lovely to be on the path with you.